Hello and welcome to Roll on the Adventure, the show where we make a role-playing game collaboratively. I'm Dimitris. I have Chris, Purple, and Joel with me today.
Intro.
This is your cue, guys. To say hello. Yeah, and let's go to the intro.
Roll on, 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 roll on,
Adventure.
roll on the
Adventure.
That was not the worst one.
That was beautiful.
That was actually vaguely coherent.
Let's not be too self-congratulatory on that.
Glad I could be a part of that.
So yes, welcome to All the Adventure. This is the first episode of a new arc, which means we're creating a brand new game. Last time we created a game called Temporal Stereotype Zoo. Does anyone want to say a few words about that?
I can take over. So, Temporal Stereotype Zoo was independent, very minimal game that was played in distinct phases. The players would be humans kidnapped by some form of alien beings, and they would be portraying some form of temporal stereotypes like 80s punk or yuppies or Visigoths or various other temporal stereotypes, and they would try to escape from the zoo.
Yeah, we had quite a lot of fun playing it. I got the punk.
Yep, I was a hacker, and then it all ended up in all kinds of interesting fractal zoos of some description.
And I was playing the heavy metal singer.
So now we're going to do a different game, and we're joined by Joel this time. And so I think we should do another round of introductions. Do you want to go first then, Joel?
Sure. I am Joel. I am better known for writing prolifically on Geek Out Southwest. These days I'm also running as the Shropshire Dungeon Master, running role-playing games for hire around the West Midlands.
Cool. How can people get in touch if they wish to learn more about that?
They can get in touch directly via Geek Out Southwest, which is the biggest page. My boss doesn't mind, but the Shropshire DM on Facebook is the direct way to get in touch with me. So if there's anybody in the West Midlands jonesing for a game but can't keep a group together to save their lives, get in touch or just like and add the page on Facebook, because I run events around the local area as well.
Cool. I'm Dave. I run a variety of role-playing games, both at home and at conventions. I've just come back from UK Games Expo, where I ran five sessions of role-playing games, only 2 of which were the same system. Lloyd called bullshit on me when I told him that the Unknown Armies was the least niche thing I was running. Then I told him what else I was running, and he was forced to agree with me. I also do sort of stage kind of role-playing game things, and some that aren't particularly role-playing game related, and are just chaos. Chris?
And I'm Chris. I run various games, play various games in a significantly less professional capacity than you do, but mostly just doing it for the fun.
And Dimitri?
And I'm Dimitris. I currently run Mage the Awakening 2nd edition game for RP Haven in London, and I've also designed Frontier, which is a sci-fi role-playing game, medium crunch, and I like to tinker and hack a lot of things, so it felt like a really good show for me.
Cool. So the main thing that came out of the discussion last time was that we'd like to see some PvP in this game. And PvP can be really tricky, so I'm really interested to see how we work this out. For those that have just joining us for this arc, we're going to do a couple of sessions of actual play, so that's going to be 4 hours of actual game. And then we're going to have a post-mortem recording and redo a draft of the game, which you'll be able to find on the Facebook page. So, does anyone have anything that they'd like to add in terms of genres? go for genre first.
I think it's a good opportunity to do something classic, sort of high fantasy, sword and sorcery, sort of thing, perhaps, because it helps us be as little realistic as we can afford to. I think.
Yep, I think that's quite cool. So it's going to be like a homage to old fantasy world building in a way, almost.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Awesome.
Lots of
So
big dramatic names of probably far too many apostrophes.
oh crikey, that's going to be interesting.
Well, you don't have to go full cliche, but that's the kind of thing.
I don't know. I feel that we probably should go quite cliche. What do you reckon, Joel?
Do we go with the sort of Tolkien-esque multiracial and sort of stick with all of Tolkien's major stereotypes, or do we go like all out with the ridiculous sort of Athas, Dark Sun-esque, bastardize every race until it's beyond recognition sort of thing is my major question.
I'm more along the lines of the latter, personally, but that's my particular proclivities.
Anybody arguing with the latter?
The let's screw with everything, let's twist things. Not necessarily subvert. I think there's a difference between subversion and sort of letting things reach their like some crazy conclusion. I think that's a different thing. Although I
was raised on Terry Pratchett books more than anything, and that was more of a subversion, sort of taking the original types and things like sort of paradising dwarves until they were sort of gold obsessed lunatics, or elves, so that they were suddenly the bad guys, drawing people in with their beauty. I loved that. But I also like the idea of lunatic elves that sharpen their teeth and run on the sand because riding an animal is just completely unfaithful to the beasts and unfaithful to yourself.
That's cool. Or everyone's halfling cannibal dinosaur riders.
Yeah, sadly absent so far in D&D 5th ed.
Yeah, that is sad.
I'm sure they'll pop up sooner or later.
Dimitri, what do you think?
I think that the more we have, like the more connections we can have between various races. If we have in mind that we're building a PvP game, the better. So I think that even between races, it will be good to have some sort of variance in these. So we can have both versions of dwarves that have been mentioned, or all versions of elves that have been mentioned without issue. But I'm really up for the silly sort of Terry Pratchett-esque sort of thing.
Okay, so I'm thinking one of the things that I really love about a game called Fellowship is that people kind of take charge of the race that they're playing, but that's only works because there's only one of each race. So like the elf is a character playbook. It's a dungeon world, powered by the apocalypse thing.
I never heard of this game.
It's quite a small one. I personally think it's my favorite powered by the apocalypse adaptation. And I've played a couple, and I've enjoyed. I really enjoyed Monster Hearts, but I just prefer Fellowship slightly. Partly because it's easy to get people to play it.
Because that has the thing where, like, if you're the elf, you are able to basically define, this is how elves work in this world and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Which gives it's powered by the apocalypse, so the players have a fair amount of control anyway, but it's interesting to make that explicit. So it's kind of like, what do elves normally eat? Are they vegetarian or what? And then the player that's playing the elf can just go, yes, we normally eat lembas bread or whatever.
Yeah. The thing is, if we're doing PvP, is this going to end up as some sort of weird race war game? And can we actually do that well?
Well, it depends on what we focus the PvP on, because I think one of the other things on there was like not to what was it? Yeah, not to the death, possibly rather than social conflict, rather than just murder each other in the face.
Okay. Job, what were you going to say?
There's an idea I've been toying with recently, with a young world. There's always this presumption in fantasy that the world is incredibly old and filled with ruins from ancient fallen dynasties. I've been sort of toying with a young Bronze Age-ish fantasy world in which the new races are only just meeting one another for maybe the first time, where maybe there's tribes of humans revering elves as gods because the same elf visited their grandfather's grandfather and perhaps visits once every generation, sort of thing. Or dwarves are these mythical subterranean horrors who kill miners who encroach on their territory and things like that. So I'm wondering if there's sort of something worth considering there, in that none of the races really know each other well enough to trust each other or work together.
I think that's quite
But
interesting.
Possibly also numbers are small enough and populations small and scattered enough that it's not, we need to brutally murder all these people before they take our stuff, because you live all the way over there, the dwarves live all the way over there. You might get into conflict, but there's a fair amount of scope of, these are some strange people, maybe we can do something interesting rather than kill each other.
That's actually quite an awesome thing. Like, we could definitely, it's the inherent mistrust in Bronze Age society is really cool, and perhaps these sort of conflicts can form some sort of consequences for the future, perhaps.
Okay. So I'm kind of thinking we're going to need some reason for all these people to be in the same place. Is there going to be some sort of cataclysm or something? Do we want some sort of encroaching threat? I know that's very cliche, but it's a good reason to get everyone in the same place. The other thing would be to have, say, some sort of natural disaster forcing people together.
This, or sometimes when you have some form of astral travel, or portals, or creatures from other dimensions, or things like that, perhaps that could work. Or even different sorts of divine beings creating different sorts of races. So, like, you got the dwarf god that actually decided to create the dwarves. And the elf god decided to create the elves and that sort of thing.
Okay. So what I'm kind of thinking is we've got this big alliance, but it's not an alliance of people, it's an alliance of gods. And it's the people dealing with the fact that their gods have said don't kill each other.
But I want to.
That's basically it. They've got all the cool things. Except our deities have, said, don't go to war with these people. They are not your enemy anymore, for whatever reason. Maybe it's like one of these war in heavens type things.
It's also to what degree, what would you go to war for? If it is a fairly new world, then you've not had time to build up the whole racial enmity thing.
Yeah.
Everyone presumably has a fair amount of land and stuff.
Well, it's also, if it's a young world, maybe it's a small world.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in flux. That's kind of what I think of.
Or there's just huge amounts of unexplored wilderness, which might be fertile or might be filled with horrible death monsters.
So there's going to possibly some sort of exploration element then.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like that.
How about a Cold War sort of thing, where the PvP is done indirectly through influencing other nations or other power groups? Would this be
okay?
Would this still be the PvP we're looking for?
I mean, PvP was something we mentioned that would be cool. I mean, we don't have to focus on that. I think it would just be nice to have it as an element.
There's a great system in Vampire, the Requiem, in Damnation City, where they sort of So the players take actions against one another, and they role play specific scenes where things are acted out, sometimes in different roles than the ones they do. Perhaps we can use this as a mechanic to support the PvP scheme.
I think there's some real good opportunities to use like a card-based system here. Does anyone remember Mind's Eye Theatre?
Oh god, yes.
I do.
Yeah. So the idea was that you each, as your conflict resolution, each person picked a number from 1 to 10, and I believe it was high numbers were better for the attacker, but because you didn't know what the other person was going to pick, it became a gamble. So you could pick low and hope they picked high, but if they also picked low, then you'd fail, kind of thing.
Okay.
So I'm thinking having the results of your actions be sort of the results of other people's of your actions combined with other people's actions in some sort of way. So it's like matching suits add to the sort of chaos in the world kind of thing.
Has anyone ever played The Quiet Year?
I haven't. I've heard of it.
It's a post-apocalyptic survivor thing. Instead of being kind of a direct role-playing game, you're communally in charge of telling the story of a group of survivors. You draw a map and so forth, but in kind of each turn you draw cards from a deck and then do things based off that. So like a Ace of Hearts might be you find some extra resources or something.
Yeah.
It's kind of a similar thing of a card mechanic combined with the world exploration almost.
So I'm thinking it'd be quite nice to have some sort of combined table and cards thing. I think that could be really interesting.
A good way to sort of specialize this is to say that the role-playing sessions, which are PvP, are some sort of tribes council, if we're still going with the
I think that would be really good.
With the Iron Age or Bronze Age thing, where people must negotiate about a certain resource and things like that.
Right. So bear with me with this. I've got an idea. The gods have struck down the sort of traitor god, like the enemy. This whole War in the Heavens, fall of Lucifer kind of stuff that seems to always happen in fantasy worlds, because we might as well do it. And they've been hurled physically to Earth, and this world is kind of coalescing around it. There's probably something there before, but I'm not really that fussed what. It's still early history. And no god fully trusts the others to not sort of use the power of this fallen god for their own ends. So they've each appointed a tribe of the race they created to look over it, and these tribes have this shared responsibility, but each one's out for their own to their own ends more. What do you think?
I like it.
Yeah. So effectively, all of the younger races have got these sort of. They have access to the evil, or they are in charge of deciding what happens with the power that's left over when this thing has fallen.
Making sure nobody else messes with it, I think, is.
You're in charge of locking it away.
Effectively, you're the guardians of the prime evil, effectively.
Ooh, I like it.
I mean, I think it hits those quite kind of big epic notes that we're after without making everything too old, because this has literally just happened like on Wednesday. The first meeting of the tribes is the first part of the game, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be quite good for any basically formalizing this is the stuff you as players need to talk out and decide between yourselves.
Yeah. I think having a sort of intro scene, which is very much dedicated to being a let's introduce everybody kind of scene, is a good
Yeah.
idea. It worked quite well last time, I think, and so I think that's one thing that I would like to take from the last game.
World where the great evil was cast down yesterday. These races must work together.
Yeah.
That's all I've got.
Your dramatic voice is surprisingly good.
I don't know if it's
yeah,
surprising.
Well, for quite small dedicated games like this, that just do the kind of one thing. It's quite good to get into that as soon as possible,
Yeah.
because it might only do one thing, but it does it. Hopefully, it does it well, and you want to emphasize that this is the game where you do X as soon as possible.
Right. Yeah. So other elements that we'd like to bring in. I mean, we've gone through this pretty darn fast. I'm thinking that some sort of hidden goals would be good, and I mean, we could start by hidden information and then work towards hidden goals from that. Is what I'm thinking.
Do you think the game master will provide these secrets, or would they be baked into the game?
I personally think that there should be some sort of table or something, because coming up with these,
If we keep with the cards,
yeah, I think cards could work. So you've got each player gets a bit of information. What they actually do with that is not really for the GM to decide. I think that the world's too young to have goals from before, if that makes sense.
yeah, everything's literally been scourged back to the.
Yeah, everything's been changed,
minimum.
everything's new. So I think that having... Sorry, lost my train of thought there.
No worries. We could have some sort of scenario cards, or things that some environment cards that change situations, and we could say like you pick a card and it's a cataclysmic event, or a volcano erupts, or things like that.
Okay, so you've got the regular cards and you've got special cards.
Or just have those be face cards or something.
I
Just
mean,
for ease of
there's a
use,
few
I'm
ways of
thinking.
doing it. Face cards work. I mean, tarot deck works.
Yeah.
Right. For podcast reasons, I should probably ask now, does everybody own their own tarot deck?
Yep.
I have playing cards.
No, I have a tarot deck.
Okay, I'm just wondering, because I think if we're probably better off doing shared deck, but that's going to be awkward over the internet.
There must be an online site where you can do a random tarot card pull in some way.
Yeah, we'll work something out. Either way, but tarot cards work. I think also face cards work. You can take out all the face cards, distribute them along the players. They pick a handful of them, put them back. Ooh, I think I've got an idea. So how about we have a table of face cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the face cards are dealt out among the players. They each discard down to a certain number, and then the ones that have been discarded get shuffled and turned back over, so you know what's not in the game, but you don't know who
Ooh.
has what.
That's interesting. Yeah, so you know what potentially can happen, but not who's going to be able to trigger stuff.
What do you think?
I need to hear some more about this. I like it, but I think I need some clarification on this.
Yeah, I think if we could throw together some kind of dummy table or start producing more ideas.
What kind of effects would these be able to have? Would they just be kind of in the next narrative block of fluff or whatever, you are able to narrate I think Joel suggested a volcano or a hurricane or whatever. Or
So you'd be able to
a bit
sort
more
of
mechanical.
a bit of narrative takeover, like your people discover something, or your people take control of something or something of that kind of thing. I think it should always be about your people.
So just to wind it back slightly, we're basically assuming that each player is a people rather than a specific. They're not like the leader of the people or something. They are basically the people in their totality.
I think they're both.
Okay.
I think when you're playing a scene, when you're doing your negotiations and things, because you know what people might have. So you can say, if you play this, which is a red card, and I will also play a red card, and if everyone plays red cards, things tend to go very well.
Then stuff.
Whereas if everyone plays different suits or something like that, then things go a bit more wrong.
Which also means people can throw in spoiler effects to screw things up or whatever. Cool.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
One way we could find inspiration for good events for the people that are in the races. Societies are influenced by this. Is emerging technologies like the wheel, or handling fire, or building houses and things like that. These things might be either achievement events that are happening that change the flow of history.
What might work as sort of secrets is that certain people get sort of mastery over certain things. So you can go, I am particularly good at building stuff, or I am particularly good at metallurgy, or I'm particularly gifted in animal handling.
So we're building Civilization, the fantasy role-playing game.
Kind of.
I like it. I'm not
problem?
saying this is a bad thing.
Yeah,
It sounds like everything's mostly on the narrative level rather than the I have metallurgy +3, if that makes sense.
yeah. Plus, you have a sort of model UN sort of format that will, shake things up.
And
Yeah.
probably with some fluff of if things go horribly wrong, then the evil is unleashed, everyone dies.
Yeah, so you've got to keep things sort of reasonable.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be particularly friendly.
Yeah, you can't go full out murdering each other, but you don't have to be particularly nice.
Yeah. I think that's possibly the best. So we try to keep reasonable because there's these distant deities that your tribe worships that have basically decreed that you can't just go wipe the other ones out. I don't know, it feels a little forced, but I don't know if that's necessarily that bad a thing.
Well, we did mention the kind of locked away ancient evil, so it could just be, well, if we tie it into the cards again somehow, if there's too much chaos or disruption or badness or whatever happens in too short a time period,
yeah,
oops,
there's
you've
like
just
a
unsealed the
chaos
great
index
evil,
or something.
game over. So you have, if there is kind of that ever level threshold of I could play this to really ramp my race up, but if somebody else does the same thing in this turn, then we're going to be right on that threshold, something like that.
So here's my thought: the face cards are, some of them are say kings are ways that you can you achieve more if you achieve a certain type of goal. Right? So you set a goal for your people, and if you achieve that goal, you get so many victory points. And if you've got the king card of that suit, then you get more victory points. Right?
Okay.
So, but queen cards could be, you can basically you can play it to make a victory be sort of hollow or something like that, so it doesn't count.
So king cards would increase your score. Queen cards
can decrease other
kind of let you
people's.
Either decrease their score and also let you have a bit of narrative control. It sounds like.
I think so. I'm thinking it's possible that like Jack's just mix things up. Like they basically, I don't know. There's got to be some sort of transform we can do with the cards.
The Jack could be blindly trading one card from an opponent with your card. That always shakes things up.
Mhm.
But what happens if they just do that back?
It depends on how many cards you each have in your hand. If you've
Yeah,
only got one, then no. But if you've got 2 or 3, you can just shuffle
Yeah.
under the table.
the thing is that there's only 12 face cards. So if we're designing this game to be able to take 5 players, that means you're only going to you need to have 2 each.
So,
We could say that there's a different number of playing card sets for more players.
True, yeah, you could have multiple decks, or you could have one deck that you just use for these cards.
would it be worth possibly including the regular cards just as standard action? Like they don't do special things, but a 3 of hearts gets you 3 points towards an action resolution in whatever.
That's what I thought. That's what I was thinking of as the main sort of game loop is playing cards, from this, which the GM then interprets.
And so that would mean that. So you're dealing out the face. Everyone gets some face cards to start with, so they can do special stuff, and then non-face cards afterwards, so they do the core gameplay loop.
That's what I was thinking, but I don't know if that's going to be too restrictive.
How would it be restrictive? Like, what do you have in mind?
Not so much restrictive as in for one game. I mean, like I think it might be limiting in terms of replayability.
Wouldn't most of the replayability tend to come from what happened? Because essentially the cards are there as a randomizer generator.
I mean, also if we've got like an element or something assigned to each suit, then it's possible that you could just name each suit as a group. So one game you could have earth, air, fire, and water, and in the other one you might have technology, exploration, that kind of thing.
Oh, cool. So yeah, earth, air, fire, water. That would probably be a fairly easy default. And then if you want to mix the game up, you could go with, as you suggested, or something a bit different.
Yeah, but what's a fire objective? I suppose it could be claiming things to do with fire.
Or something fairly aggressive, like being the biggest, best, or the...
Yeah. I think that's kind of cool. That's interesting.
It starts developing in a direction sort of Avatar: The Last Airbender sort of thing.
I mean, could do, I suppose, but that means making the races elemental effectively. And I'm not sure we want to. I think I don't know about explicitly doing that.
In stereotypically, they kind of fall within that format anyway. So I mean, elves are typically sort of air or water or something along those lines. Dwarves are always earth, and humans might be fire, or if we throw orcs or something into it, they might be fire to represent sort of passion, wild expansion, or sort of even just sort of visceral warlike attitudes. Or something like halflings can sort of occupy whichever gap elves leave, sort of thing. They tend to be river folk, so possibly water.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I like that too.
Doesn't break the stereotypes like we wanted to, but still, I mean, we could always play with it a little bit, sort of apply not direct rips from Avatar, but sort of give them sort of slightly more thematic things. I mean, we could throw fire to the elves or something.
You could always just change that up on a game-by-game basis.
Yeah.
These are the defaults. If you want to have your elves being earthy and your dwarves all airy, you can do so.
I think we could let the cards decide, like, the character of the races to an extent. So you don't create your race until after you've got your face cards. So you know what your race is good at before you make their personality traits. That would mean having the face cards like face up effectively, so people know. So you're not or maybe one of them face up. So there's one where people know that you're good at this, and one where people don't necessarily know that you get bonus points for doing this. Just a thought.
We can say there's one suit of cards per person. So if you have 5 people, you can effectively play with 5 suits. From 2 decks. I mean.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I like the idea of people playing like cards from other that benefit other people.
Yeah, well, because you're obviously kind of a civilization and so forth. If you do technologically advance, your neighbors are going to pick up some of the stuff you do.
Yeah. So like the people that help you with things get points as well.
Or if some people might just want certain suits to be played or certain cards to come out.
Yeah.
And not
So
particularly care who plays.
what I'm thinking is each of the face cards is some sort of victory condition modifier. So like if you have the king, every time you succeed an objective, you get more stuff. You get more of that objective. With queen, every time someone plays a card of that suit, you get a point. Like less. This is like obviously less of a victory, but it adds up. Whereas with Jack, every time you help someone achieve an objective of that type, you get bonus points.
Okay.
But it's like, what do the bonus points do? And it's awkward.
Well,
And ultimately, oh, sorry.
No, carry on.
I was going to say, ultimately, they're sort of buying influence over control over this ancient evil, which brings me back to a question I was going to ask earlier on. What ultimately is the gain for any individual race for controlling the ancient evil? Because if they're in competition for it, why? What's the ultimate victory? Is it just they don't trust each other with it, or do they actually gain something as a society, as a culture?
That's the other point. Yeah, what do we want to do for endgame? I think we've got a cool idea of let's have these civilizations, let's have them be in charge of this, let's do card-based stuff and have like tribal councils effectively. But I'm not quite sure where it's heading. And yeah, you make a very good point there, Joel. What is the end game? Are we looking at one big thing? Is there like in a quiet year, there is a time period that the players have to narrate and survive, well, not survive, thrive during. Whereas with this, it's pretty open-ended. I don't think that's in a good way necessarily.
I mean, dare I say it, as we're the ones who are going to be playing it, at least to start with, do we want to build into it a fixed finish line, a fixed ending?
I think there should definitely be some sort of level of contained units. So like a D&D sort of plot line. Yes, you can build them open-ended, but your sort of standard one is your dungeon crawl,
Yeah.
So there's that assumption is kind of baked into the rules in a lot of places.
It could be if you get too many negative points, some fashion, the evil is unleashed and everything blows up. Otherwise, you have a certain number of turns, and then whichever race has the most points or victory points is kind of the dominant race or the winner in some way.
Dimitri?
Perhaps these sort of these deities are too confident on the ability of the specific tribes to control this ancient evil, and at some point it will actually pop out, and basically the world's going to end or something like this, and the strive is to just get ahead of the curve as much as you can.
So basically, it's going to break down. This equilibrium, this peace isn't going to last. But it's a case of getting yourself in the best position so that when it does, you can be the ones who capitalize on it.
Yeah, pretty much
Yeah.
like, all Cold War situations.
That kind of fits nicely with the whole scheming gods thing. I'm a little worried that, like, if it's tied to the players causing chaos, that the players are going to be nice and risk averse and try to minimize the chaos and slowly creep towards the finish line.
But it makes sense for a game that's specifically designed for PvP and the sort of, disruptive end.
If you have a limited number of turns as well, and it's basically the same axis for good points as bad points, kind of they come out, then you can't just sit there and do nothing, I suppose.
Yeah. I think sometimes helping someone else has got to be the best plan. Ooh, I've got an idea. What happens if there's everyone has like a card that is their sort of ongoing card? What happens if the other card changes every turn?
As in, there's kind of a seasonal modifier effect.
Yeah. And in the same way that if you played Secret Hitler, it's perfectly legit to go, well, of course I played this card. I only have the choice of these cards.
Honest.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that sort of system might work.
Yeah, I was thinking something. Oh, sorry. I was thinking something along the lines of Love Letter, where you've got sort of constantly shifting and changing cards in your hand, but the cards that are in your hand affect your influence over the court and its surroundings. Has everybody here played Love Letter or something similar?
Yeah.
So it's sort of court influence, either that or coup, as sort of inspirational mechanics, as it were.
Yeah, I think having one face up, one face down would be quite nice, because it means it gives you a reason to declare some stuff about your race.
Yeah.
And so if you're in positions where there's some public information, you probably end up going, oh yeah, I totally have to play this card, even though it does bad things for the chaos level and just coincidentally happens to help. Something like that.
Yeah,
even though you're quite possibly lying through your teeth.
I think that'd be kind of cool. So, do you think that a DM character, some sort of priesty type, would be useful for keeping things going? Or would the GM mostly be sort of giving color, playing like messengers or whatever, and describing the effects of people's actions? Do you reckon they'd actually be playing a character at all?
It sounds, dare I say, almost like it could run GM-less if there's enough sort of cards managing random events and things like that.
I do like the idea, but I'm not certain.
Yeah, I'm saying this as somebody with very little experience in GM-less systems, as I've sort of said to you, Chris, and you, Purple. But it's a beguiling idea of having everybody governing the narrative by debate.
Yeah, I do like that.
I think for getting it developed, it's probably easier to have a GM, just because there's going to be lots of weird edge in the rules that we don't.
I don't know. I do like the GM-less idea.
I think it could work GM-less, just getting all the odds and probabilities sorted that it works GM-less.
In my head, it's better for a PvP game to be GM-less, eliminates the things that can go wrong in terms of, favoritism and that sort of thing. I think a GM-less system would be fairer to everyone.
I kind of like the idea, and I really think it could work. I mean, we could also sort of elect someone to be the chairman and give them effectively duties to do.
What if the chairman is nominated sort of every so often, like where they elect a new one every sort of amount of turns or after certain circumstances
Yeah.
are reached?
I mean, Microscope has a Microscope
Right.
has a
Focus.
That's the one. I forgot
That's
the word.
cool.
Yeah. So yeah, the lens who sets the focus, and that focus kind of goes for a while, and this person gets to set it. I'm wondering if sort of like a sort of outer and in a round sort of thing kind of works. So if there's 4 players, one person is chairman for 3 rounds, and then it moves on to the next person.
Yeah, something like that.
Or there's a new election or whatever, and
Yeah.
there may be like if certain things happen, it will force a new election.
Yeah, just something to keep it rotating and moving around.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think there could be an event, sort of snap election thing. Or
Or maybe somebody has to pay resources cards to do it, so anyone can do it, but it means giving kind of like first turn mark in quite a lot of board games where you can
Yeah.
go first.
I think that's kind of cool. And they're the one. The thing is, if we're doing cards, if we're doing cards, then we don't necessarily have to know who. Like the person who's working out what the cards do doesn't actually need to know who played what card.
Yeah.
They just know the cards that were played. I think that kind of works.
yeah, facilitator of sorts.
Yeah, and that'll be the chairman whose job it is to, do this stuff and spin a bit of fiction. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. So the chairman basically interprets the set of cards after each round. Does
Yeah.
a bit of bookkeeping, does a bit of extra work. And I don't know, like, would you say that they have a short conversation with each person about how they see their race dealing with this stuff?
You're probably going to want the fiction level coming in somewhere to go, yeah, this has been a great season of fire, much growth has happened. What have you
Yeah.
done?
I kind of like that. It's kind of ritualistic, but I don't think it's in a
Mhm.
particularly bad way. And it's not quite in the same way it's like we had the turn orders last time. What do you think, Dimitri?
Yeah, I think this is a good direction. I would prefer that the game in general is, in terms of interactions, is more free form. So
Yeah.
I don't want to limit this conversation because a lot of the game is going to be very rigid with cards and that sort of thing. So it would be nice to see, like, to have a free form conversation on, diplomacy and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so you can actually play out your peace treaties and stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, and there are some times that you connect with your character, the leader you're supposed to be, and you get into the conversation. I don't think we should limit this. I think that the rest of the game is going to be quite tabletop-y and rigid, and this thing we need to fan the flames, get
Yeah.
into character.
I really think that. Yeah, so we're trying to have it be mediated by the cards, but not like solidly controlled by them. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah.
Cool. So
It does run the risk of becoming a bit too board gamey otherwise.
yeah, our last one was quite board gamey in some ways.
I think that having a goal like PvP is going to make the game very board gamey because it breaks from the whole we're a team and we do a certain thing together.
Yeah.
I think this is expected of this format.
It
Yeah,
has to be a bit more structured to stop someone just shouting over everyone else and winning because no
Yeah.
one else got questions.
So I'm thinking we've got these councils. I think we need at least one other type of scene. I mean, what do you think for should there be a scene at the end of each objective where it's like, this is the thing that happened, let's play it out?
One cool thing is that the chairman in other scenes becomes this dark figure, like the devil of the world, and they can do bad stuff, and they can be angry at the tribes and that sort of thing. But since they will change hands afterwards,
they don't have too much influence to push.
Yes, because it's going to bite them back.
Yeah, I like that. So we've got this moving antagonist role, effectively.
Yeah.
I mean, also, do we want to have the leader role and the antagonist separate?
No, I'm suggesting it's the same person. So when they flip, they flip. But I mean, like, what if there's a scene format where it's not a council? It's the representatives go to this being's prison or something, and they taunt it, or that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So we're definitely looking at more than just the. I like that. The council scenes are kind of the glue that stitches it together, almost, or at least the bit that drives the plot.
As well as also the regular. We catch up with the admin. This is what has happened. Is everyone still on the same page? Good. Now let's move on with the next.
The other option is to have two characters. So each person has a character who's like a hero and a character who's like the leader. And the hero is trying to, do the good in the world, succeed at these objectives. Whereas the leader is trying to make the objectives pay off as big as possible for their race. I don't know. Does that make sense to people?
I'm struggling to understand the format of the scenes that the hero will be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff like okay, so you've set off to recover this meteor that's fallen, and there's dinosaurs or something, and you're battling against these dinosaurs, and you can kind of play out this scene with the in a pretty narrative manner. Because the person who's GMing it is the leader, and they've got the cards, so they know how it turns out.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I actually kind of like that. So the idea that as a council, you decide where to send your valiant heroes, your sort of unified national heroes, and then the council together settle on the outcome ahead of time, pass their sort of outcome to the GM, who just sort of turns over card at a time, and that's how that adventure results. Okay, I quite like that, actually.
It's kind of some weird mix of Dogs in the Vineyard and, like a freeform scene.
You wouldn't actually have a hero character, as it were. It'd just be a case of the Dungeon Master has in his hand a fixed set of outcomes and sort of turns over cards narrating the story. Do we give the GM the power to order those cards herself, or?
I think that would work. Then you can have that sort of tension.
Because that gives the GM, the sort of council leader, a great deal of power to control the outcome, but everybody else has had a major input as well.
I don't think they control the outcome. I think that the outcome is set by the total of the cards, and the people play. Like when you play the cards, you don't see what everyone else put in.
Yeah.
So it could go badly, even if everyone plays good cards.
Either way, I like it.
If people there should be a chance of that. I think. Like if everyone plays the same suit, something goes weird.
Yeah, or if there's like a straight flush, or depending on the combination.
Yeah, Demetrius?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing I can contribute here is that perhaps instead of a game master sort of thing, instead of being the tribal leader, it's the evil being doing stuff. So the evil being might be more influential to the world than the regular humans. Does it make sense?
I can't
You
see
could
where you're going
potentially-
from.
One thing that's just thought is you could potentially have like a kind of discard or chaos round or something. So as well as playing cards that change the world specifically for you, discarded cards, and I don't know, one gets picked at random or they'll get shuffled up, or something, and the chaos gets to do stuff with those. So again, you have to be. Sometimes you might end up having to play a card you don't want to, because otherwise your other one gets discarded and could have caused even worse stuff.
Yeah.
But depending on what cards end up in the pile, how they determine, there's kind of a sliding scale of the level of effects, narrate or decide how that goes.
I think what we're looking at here is some sort of bet. So you're trying to basically bid on something that no one else gets, because if no one else gets it, you get the full pool.
Okay.
I think there's definitely a mechanic in there. It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Now I wish I've played more games like this.
I can't think of any that's really doing this. I think Make You King has some similar bits. if I remember
The
rightly.
licensing for that fell through, didn't it? It sounded good, but
Yeah, it did. It sounded really
Yeah.
good. It was a Japanese game that was being translated called Make You Kingdom. It was very board gamey, but it's kind of you set the board up effectively, and then you send your adventurer through it, if I remember correctly.
and you had followers and so forth as you're trying to make your own. Basically, the world had imploded or whatever, turned into D&D style dungeons.
Yeah, it's dungeons all the way down.
Followers, yeah, and yeah, it also had eunuch as a class.
Oh yeah. It's a fun little game.
But yeah, the Quiet Year is kind of vaguely similar, except that a lot more collaborative. And from what I remember of that, you draw a card, and kind of each one has and something along these lines happens, and then you to the map describe what actually does. Whereas this
So-
one's a bit more focused in PvP.
Yeah. Right. So I think what we need to do for the next arc is we're going to need to work out the sort of scene structure. How do the council set things up for the heroes? Then we're going to have to look at races, like racial cards, that kind of thing, and how how they're set up. Like, how do we generate these races? How do we sort of settle on things for the world without the GM? And I think then we need to work out what the actual effects of the cards are, which is probably going to be quite a bit of doodling and maths. People cool with that?
Yeah, the actual mechanical side might be.
Yep.
Apart from the math, yeah.